The forgotten seat, the discovery, and the shadow's ambassador, Zilara, moved through the grand council chamber with practiced grace. Her crystalline body caught the artificial sunlight streaming through the massive dome above, scattering rainbow patterns across the ancient stone floor. She had walked these halls for 30 years, representing her people in the Galactic Federation. Yet today, something felt different. The chamber was empty now, the day's session having ended hours ago, and in the silence, she noticed things she had overlooked before. The council chamber was enormous, built to accommodate representatives from 800 different worlds. Seats curved in ascending rows, each one designed for a different species. Some were pools of liquid for aquatic beings. Others were anti-gravity platforms for those who flew. The diversity was breathtaking, a testament to the Federation's greatest achievement, unity across impossible differences. But as Zilara climbed to the uppermost tier, exploring sections rarely visited, she found something that made her stop. A seat stood alone in a forgotten corner, covered in dust so thick it looked gray instead of its original color. Strange vines from the chamber's decorative plants had begun to curl around its base. But what caught her attention was the seat itself. It was different from all the others. The material was dark metal, harder and denser than anything used in modern construction. The backrest rose high, carved with symbols that her translator implant couldn't identify. The armrests were smooth, designed for beings with hands similar to her own crystalline appendages. But it was the feeling of the seat that disturbed her most. It felt lonely, abandoned, yet somehow still waiting. "You found it," a voice said from behind her. Zilara turned to see Archivist Thren approaching slowly. He was old, even by the standards of his long-lived species. His 6 eyes had dimmed with age, and his movements were careful, deliberate. He carried a data tablet that looked almost as ancient as he was. "Found what?" Zilara asked, though something in her core already knew this was important. "The seat of Earth," Thren said softly. "I wondered if anyone would ever notice it again." The story of the lost world Zilara sat in the adjacent seat, staring at the empty place beside her. "Earth? I've never heard of such a world." "Few have." Thren settled onto a nearby bench designed for his species. His breathing was labored from the climb. The records were sealed long ago, then forgotten, then sealed again by someone who remembered they existed. I only know because I inherited the archives from my predecessor, who inherited them from hers, back through a chain of memory that stretches 75,000 years. 75,000 years? Zilara's voice resonated with disbelief. That's before the Great Wars, before the Federation even existed in its current form. Exactly. Thren activated his tablet, and holographic images appeared in the air between them. The species called themselves humans. Their world was Earth, a blue and green planet orbiting a yellow star they named Sol. They were one of the founding members of the Galactic Federation. In fact, they helped write the very treaties that govern us today. The holograms showed images of beings that looked almost familiar. They stood upright on 2 legs, had 2 arms, and faces with 2 eyes, 1 nose, and 1 mouth. They came in different shades, from very dark to very light, with hair of various colors. Some images showed them in primitive clothing, others in advanced environmental suits. "They look so ordinary," Zilara said. "Why would they be founding members? What made them special?" Thren scrolled through more images. According to the records, humans were extraordinary diplomats. They had a unique ability to understand different perspectives. You see, on their own world, they had developed hundreds of different cultures, thousands of languages, and countless ways of living. They fought terrible wars among themselves, nearly destroying their own planet several times. But somehow, they learned from those mistakes. When they reached the stars and met other species, they brought that hard-won wisdom with them. The hologram changed to show a younger Federation with only a dozen member worlds. In the images, humans stood alongside representatives of species Zilara, recognized from historical records. They were smiling, shaking hands and tentacles and claws, building bridges between worlds that had been enemies. Humans had a phrase, Thren continued. They said they were good at finding common ground. They believed that no matter how different two beings seemed, there was always something they could agree on, some shared value to build from. During the Great Wars, when the galaxy was tearing itself apart, humans traveled between warring factions and found ways to make peace. They saved billions of lives. Then what happened to them? Zilara asked. Why is their seat empty? The vanishing Thren's expression grew sad. 75,000 years ago, humans announced a bold initiative. They wanted to explore beyond the galactic rim, to see what lay in the vast darkness between galaxies. They built a colony ship called the Horizon Seeker and loaded it with their best scientists, explorers, and families willing to make the journey. The entire Federation celebrated. It was supposed to be humanity's greatest adventure. The hologram showed a massive ship, sleek and beautiful, decorated with symbols from Earth's many cultures. Thousands of humans stood on its decks, waving to crowds below as the ship prepared to launch. The Horizon Seeker left the Sol system and headed toward the rim. They sent regular reports for the first year. Then the messages stopped. Earth sent search parties. 3 ships went looking for the Horizon Seeker. None of them ever returned. Then Earth itself went silent. Every communication ceased. Every ship that approached the Sol system simply vanished. Zilara felt a chill run through her crystalline form. What happened? The Federation sent a military fleet to investigate. When they reached the Sol system, they found it surrounded by some kind of energy barrier. It looked like a sphere of quantum interference, perfectly smooth, completely impenetrable. Ships that tried to enter disappeared. Probes that made contact were destroyed instantly. Energy weapons had no effect. The barrier seemed to exist in multiple dimensions at once. Thren showed her scientific readings from that ancient investigation. The data made no sense, describing phenomena that violated known physics. The Federation tried everything for a decade, Thren said. Magic, technology, dimensional gates, everything. Nothing worked. Finally, they declared the Sol system a dead zone and forbade anyone from approaching. They assumed Earth had been destroyed by some unknown force. They kept the seat empty at first as a memorial. Then as the centuries passed, it became tradition. Eventually, everyone forgot why the seat was empty at all. They just knew it shouldn't be removed. A galaxy in Zilara stood and walked to the chamber's window. Below, she could see the Federation capital world sprawling beneath them. Billions of beings from hundreds of worlds lived in harmony here. It was beautiful, peaceful, everything the founders had dreamed of. But that peace was under threat. Asterisk, why are you telling me this now? She asked. Because the galaxy faces a crisis we haven't seen since the Great Wars, Thren said, rising with difficulty. The Krindak's Dominion has been attacking our outer colonies for 5 years. They don't negotiate. They don't accept surrender. They simply take what they want and destroy everything else. We've lost 17 worlds already. Billions dead. And the Council can't agree on how to respond. Zilara had been in today's session. She'd heard the arguments. Some representatives wanted to build more defenses. Others wanted to try diplomacy, though the Krindaks had ignored every envoy. A few suggested abandoning the outer colonies to protect the core worlds. The debate had gone in circles for hours, accomplishing nothing while more systems burned. What does this have to do with Earth? She asked. Thren approached the empty seat and placed his hand on the armrest. I've spent decades studying the human records. I've translated documents that no one else can read. And I've learned something important. Humans weren't just good at making peace. They were also exceptional at war. When the Great Wars began, humans fought with a creativity and determination that shocked everyone. They used strategies that no one had seen before. They won battles they should have lost. They protected their allies even at great cost to themselves. Asterisk, he pulled up military records, battle reports from 75,000 years ago. Zilara read descriptions of human tactics, maneuvers with names like guerrilla warfare and strategic deception. She saw reports of human ships facing impossible odds and finding ways to win. There's a pattern in these records, Thren said. Humans had a saying, we don't fight for glory or conquest. We fight to protect those who cannot protect themselves. They believed that freedom was the highest value, that every being had the right to live without fear, and they were willing to die for that belief. Zilara turned back to the empty seat. In the fading light, the unknown symbols on the backrest seemed to glow faintly. You think we need humans now. You think they could help us against the Krindaks. I think the answers we need might lie in our past, Thren said. And I think it's worth trying to find out. The impossible signal that night, Zilara couldn't rest. She returned to her quarters and studied everything Thren had given her about humanity. She read their histories, filled with stories of people overcoming impossible challenges. She studied their philosophies, ideas about justice and freedom that seemed both simple and profound. She examined their art, which ranged from beautiful to disturbing, always honest. The more she learned, the more she understood why the galaxy had forgotten them. Humans were uncomfortable to remember. They asked difficult questions. They challenged assumptions. They refused to accept that anything was impossible. In an ancient, stable federation that valued tradition and consensus, humans had been a constant disruption. Perhaps it was easier to forget them than to live up to their example. 3 days later, everything changed. Zilara was in a council session when urgent alarms began sounding. A military officer burst into the chamber, her face twisted with shock. Emergency report, she announced. A probe has emerged from the Sol system. The chamber erupted in confusion. Zilara pushed through the crowd to reach the officer. That's impossible. Nothing escapes the Sol barrier. The probe came through 15 minutes ago. It's broadcasting a message in old Federation standard. The quantum barrier around Sol is failing. After 75,000 years, it's beginning to collapse. Zilara's mind raced. She looked at Thren, who had been sitting in the observer section. The old archivist's eyes were wide with wonder and fear. What does the message say? Zilara demanded. The officer activated a holographic display. It's a distress call. Very old design, probably launched decades ago and just now escaped. The message is simple. Earth survives. Barrier failing. Request contact. And then it gives coordinates for a safe approach vector. The council erupted in debate. Some members insisted it was a trick, perhaps a trap set by the Krindaks. Others argued they couldn't ignore it. A few suggested sending a military fleet, while others wanted to send diplomats. Zilara made her decision. She pushed forward to address the council. I volunteer to lead a diplomatic mission to the Sol system. If Earth truly survives, if humans are still there after all this time, we owe them the courtesy of contact. They were our founders. They deserve to know what has become of the Federation they helped create. The debate continued for hours, but eventually the council agreed. Zilara would lead a small delegation to Earth. They would bring greetings, offer friendship, and discover the truth about humanity's fate. As she left the chamber that evening, Zilara looked one more time at the empty seat. The dust still covered it. The symbols were still unreadable. But now, for the first time in 75,000 years, There was hope that someone might sit there again. The journey to Sol would take 2 weeks through hyperspace. Zilara spent that time preparing. She studied human psychology, practiced phrases in their primary language, and tried to imagine what they might be like after so long in isolation. Had they changed? Had they forgotten the Federation? Would they even want to return? On the 14th day, her ship dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Sol system. What appeared on the sensors made Zylara's crystalline heart nearly stop. The barrier was still there, but it was flickering, pulsing with energy. And beyond it, she saw lights. Thousands of lights. Cities on planets, stations in orbit, ships moving between worlds. Earth had not just survived. Earth had thrived, and now, after 75,000 years of silence, humanity was about to rejoin the galaxy. Zilara didn't know what that would mean. But as her ship moved slowly toward the barrier, following the coordinates from the ancient probe, she felt something she hadn't felt in years. She felt hope. The awakening beyond the barrier, a diplomatic vessel Starbridge, moved cautiously through the flickering quantum barrier. Zilara stood on the bridge, her crystalline hands gripping the railing as reality itself seemed to bend around them. The ship's sensors screamed warnings about dimensional instability, but the coordinates from the ancient probe held true. For 75,000 years, nothing had penetrated this barrier. Now it opened like a door that had finally found its key. When they emerged on the other side, Zylara's entire crew fell silent. The Sol system stretched before them, transformed beyond anything they had imagined. Mars glowed red and green, its surface covered with cities and forests. Massive rings orbited Jupiter, each ring a habitat supporting millions of lives. Venus sparkled beneath climate-controlled domes. And Earth, beautiful blue Earth, sat at the center of it all like a jewel in a crown of light. "Ambassador," her sensor officer whispered, his voice shaking. "I'm reading power signatures that exceed anything in Federation space. Those orbital structures around Earth are each generating enough energy to power an entire sector. And the ships, there are thousands of ships, and their technology is centuries beyond our most advanced designs." Zilara absorbed this information with growing wonder. Humanity hadn't just survived their isolation. They had evolved, grown, built an empire within their prison. What kind of species could accomplish this? "We're being scanned," the communications officer announced. "Multiple sources. They know we're here. And Ambassador, they're sending a message. Put it through." The speakers crackled with static, then cleared. A voice spoke in perfect Federation standard, though the accent was strange, antiquated, as if someone had learned the language from very old recordings. "Unknown vessel, this is Earth System Defense Command. You have entered restricted space. Identify yourself immediately, or you will be escorted back beyond the barrier." Zilara stepped forward, activating the communication system. Her voice resonated with sincerity and hope. "Earth System Defense Command, this is Ambassador Zilara of the Galactic Federation. We received your probe. We come in peace, seeking to re-establish contact with humanity. Your seat in the Federation Council has remained empty for 75,000 years. We wish to invite you to return." The silence that followed felt eternal. Zilara imagined humans on the other end, debating, arguing, trying to understand what this meant. Then the voice returned, and she heard something in it that might have been shock or wonder or both. "Ambassador Zilara, please stand by for escort. We are waking people who will be very interested to meet you." The welcome 3 human ships appeared within minutes, sleek vessels that moved with predatory grace. They weren't the largest ships Zilara had seen, but something about their design suggested terrible efficiency. These were ships built by people who understood war intimately. The lead ship guided Starbridge toward a massive orbital station above Earth. As they approached, Zilara saw the station in detail. It was beautiful in its functionality, all clean lines and rotating sections creating artificial gravity. Ships of various sizes docked and departed in orchestrated patterns. Everything hummed with purposeful energy. "They're sending docking coordinates," her pilot announced. "Bay 17. They're rolling out diplomatic protocols." Zilara gathered her delegation carefully. She brought Dr. Vex, a scientist specializing in first contact scenarios. Commander Torin, a military observer who could assess human capabilities. And Thren, the ancient archivist who had preserved human memory when everyone else forgot. If anyone deserved to see this moment, it was him. The airlock opened with a soft hiss. On the other side stood a group of humans, and Zilara felt her breath catch. They were exactly like the ancient images, yet completely different. They wore uniforms of dark blue and silver, crisp and professional. Their eyes held depths of experience that spoke of long centuries and hard lessons learned. The woman at the center stepped forward. She had dark brown skin and short black hair threaded with gray. Her eyes were kind but cautious, and she moved with quiet authority. Everything about her suggested someone who had earned their position through merit, not inheritance. "Ambassador Zilara, welcome to Gateway Station. I am Captain Elena Vasquez, speaking on behalf of the United Earth Nations. This is Admiral David Chun, commander of our defense forces, and Dr. Amari Okonkwo, our lead specialist in xenobiology and first contact protocols." Admiral Chun was tall with East Asian features and calculating eyes that seemed to measure everything at once. His uniform displayed symbols and medals that meant nothing to Zilara, but the way he held himself said warrior in any language. Dr. Okonkwo was younger, with warm brown skin and an eager smile that suggested genuine curiosity rather than military caution. "Thank you for receiving us," Zilara said, bowing in the crystalline way of her people. "We have traveled far to find you. The galaxy has missed humanity." Captain Vasquez's expression flickered with something complex, emotion Zilara couldn't quite identify. "Please, come with us. We have much to discuss, and I suspect your questions are as numerous as ours." The truth unveiled, they walked through corridors that were spotlessly clean and efficiently designed. Humans seemed to prefer function over decoration in their working spaces. The walls displayed screens showing Earth rotating below, Mars bustling with activity, and ships traveling between the planets. This was a civilization that had mastered its star system completely. The conference room had a massive window overlooking Earth. Zilara stood transfixed by the view. She could see continents and oceans, clouds swirling in eternal patterns, and cities glowing as night fell across half the planet. It was breathtaking. "Beautiful, isn't it?" Captain Vasquez said softly. "Every human child grows up with this view. We want them to remember where we came from, what we're protecting." They settled around a table designed to accommodate different species. Zilara noticed the chairs were adjustable, suggesting humans had planned for alien visitors even during their isolation. "Let me be direct," Captain Vasquez began. "Your message surprised us greatly. We knew nothing about a galactic federation. Our historical records show humanity reaching space naturally about 5,000 years ago. Before that, we were scattered tribes and early civilizations. We have no memory of being a founding member of anything, no knowledge of leaving Earth before our own space age, and certainly no awareness of an empty seat waiting for us somewhere among the stars." Zilara felt confusion ripple through her crystalline form. She activated her datapad and displayed the ancient images. "But these are from 75,000 years ago. Humans in space, humans at the Federation founding, humans helping to end the Great Wars." The three humans studied the images with intense focus. Dr. Okonkwo leaned forward. her scientific mind analyzing every detail. These people are wearing clothing styles from Earth's Bronze Age, possibly earlier. The architecture in the background resembles ancient civilizations. But the technology, the space stations, the ships, none of this should be possible for that era. Admiral Chun spoke for the first time, his voice measured and careful. Ambassador, could someone have attacked ancient Earth, taken humans into space, used them for some purpose, then returned them to a primitive state? We don't know, Zilara admitted. The records are fragmentary. But 75,000 years ago, humans existed in space. Then you vanished. The Sol system became surrounded by a quantum barrier that nothing could penetrate. We assumed you were destroyed. Captain Vasquez exchanged looks with her colleagues. Some unspoken communication passed between them, the kind that came from years of working together. Finally, she nodded. We know about the barrier, Vasquez said slowly. We know because we created it. The room fell silent. Zilara felt shock ripple through her entire being. You created your own prison? Not a prison, Admiral Chun corrected. A fortress. A shield. Let me show you something. He activated a holographic display that filled the center of the table. Images appeared, showing deep space beyond the galactic rim. At first, Zilara saw nothing unusual. Then the perspective shifted, and she saw them. Massive shapes moving through the darkness. Creatures or ships or something in between, too large to comprehend. They consumed everything in their path, entire star systems vanishing into their forms. We call them the Devourers, Dr. Okonkwo said quietly. About 76,000 years ago, our deep space probes detected them approaching the galaxy. Not quickly, but inevitably. They're ancient beyond measure, possibly older than galaxies themselves. They move through space consuming all matter and energy, growing larger with each meal. And they were heading toward the Milky Way. Zilara stared at the images in horror. Why didn't you warn the Federation? We tried, Captain Vasquez said, and Zilara heard pain in her voice. According to our oldest records, humanity sent warnings to all known civilizations. We begged the galaxy to prepare, to build defenses, to take the threat seriously. But we were young, unproven. Other species had never seen the Devourers. They thought we were exaggerating or mistaken. The Federation Council debated for years while the threat grew closer. Finally, humanity made a choice. Admiral Chun continued the story. We decided to seal ourselves away. We erected the quantum barrier using technology we barely understood, science that took decades to develop and nearly destroyed Earth in the process. The barrier existed in multiple dimensions, making Sol system invisible to the Devourers. We hoped they would pass by Earth without noticing us, that we could hide until they moved on. But they didn't move on, Dr. Okonkwo said. They entered the galaxy, and we watched from behind our barrier as they began consuming worlds on the outer rim. We realized then that we couldn't just hide. We had to fight. But we were alone, cut off from the rest of the galaxy. So we prepared. For 75,000 years, we prepared. The long war Captain Vasquez stood and walked to the window, looking down at Earth. We transformed our civilization into one with a single purpose: survival and eventual victory. We pushed our technology forward at an unprecedented rate. We built ships designed to fight enemies that defied physics. We developed weapons that could harm beings made of dark matter and folded space. We trained every generation for a war they might never see. And we waited. The hologram changed, showing human ships engaging the Devourers in deep space. The battles were terrifying, reality itself bending and breaking as the two forces clashed. Zilara watched humans fighting with desperate courage against enemies that should have been invincible. The Devourers reached the outer edge of our barrier about 50,000 years ago, Admiral Chun said. They tried to consume Sol System, but the barrier held. Then they did something we didn't expect. They studied us. They learned. And they created servants, lesser beings built from corrupted matter, programmed to hunt and destroy on their behalf. We call them the corrupted. You might know them by another name. Zilara felt cold, understanding crystallize within her. The Krindax Dominion. Yes, the Krindax are devourer servants, possibly created from species the devourers consumed in other galaxies. They've been probing the Milky Way for millennia, testing defenses, gathering information for their masters. And they've been particularly active in the past few years because the devourers are almost here. The hologram showed the current galactic map. The outer rim glowed with markers indicating Krindax attacks. And beyond the rim, slowly approaching, Zilara could see the massive forms of the devourers themselves. Why didn't you help us before? Zilara asked, trying to keep accusation from her voice. You've been fighting the Krindax. You could have saved billions of lives. Captain Vasquez turned from the window. Because until 3 years ago, we couldn't leave the barrier without alerting the devourers to our presence. The quantum field that hit us also trapped us. We've been working for millennia to solve that problem, to find a way to lower the barrier without exposing Earth. We finally succeeded, but by then, the devourers were so close that we had to make a choice. Do we reveal ourselves to save others, knowing it might doom Earth? Or do we stay hidden and hope the galaxy survives without us? What did you choose? Thren asked. The old archivist had been silent until now, simply listening and absorbing everything. We chose to fight, Admiral Chun said simply. 3 years ago, the human fleet left Sol System for the first time in 75 millennia. We've been engaging devourer forces in deep space, keeping them away from inhabited worlds. The battles you haven't heard about, the attacks that mysteriously failed, the Krindax fleets that vanished without explanation, that was us. We've been protecting the galaxy while trying to find a way to destroy the devourers permanently. Dr. Okonkwo pulled up new data. And we succeeded. 6 months ago, we discovered the devourers' weakness. They exist partially outside normal spacetime, but their connection to our reality requires specific quantum frequencies. We built a weapon that disrupts those frequencies. 2 weeks ago, we deployed it. The devourers are dying. It will take years for them to fully expire. They're too massive to die quickly, but they're retreating now, fleeing back to intergalactic space. The threat is ending. Zilara felt her mind struggling to process everything. You fought a war for 75,000 years, alone, to protect a galaxy that forgot you existed. Not forgot, Captain Vasquez corrected gently. You kept our seat empty. Someone remembered, even if they didn't know why. That matters. The choice as Alara stood, her crystalline form reflecting the light from Earth below. Then return with us. Take your seat in the Federation Council. Help us rebuild what the Krindax destroyed. Share your technology, your knowledge. The galaxy needs humanity now more than ever. Captain Vasquez exchanged looks with her colleagues again. Then she spoke carefully, weighing each word. We will help. We will share technology and knowledge. We will fight beside the Federation against the remaining Krindax forces. But we must be clear about one thing, Ambassador. We will not bow. Not to the Council, not to any galactic authority, not to anyone. Humanity spent 75,000 years earning its freedom. We broke the chains of the devourers. We will not accept new chains from the stars. What do you mean? Zilara asked, though part of her already understood. We will join the Federation as equals, not subjects, Admiral Chun said firmly. We will vote in the Council, but we won't be bound by votes that violate our principles. We will contribute resources and military strength, But our fleet answers to Earth, not to any galactic command. We will be allies, friends, partners. But we will not be ruled. Zilara thought about Thren's words from what felt like a lifetime ago. Humans don't bow. She thought about the ancient records, stories of a species that challenged every authority, questioned every assumption, fought for freedom even when it seemed impossible. 75,000 years hadn't changed that. If anything, their long war had strengthened it. She made her decision. Then we will welcome you as equals. Partners in peace, allies in war. The Federation was founded on principles of cooperation and mutual respect. It seems we forgot those principles while you were gone. Perhaps it's time you reminded us. Captain Vasquez smiled, genuine warmth breaking through her military bearing. Then we accept. Earth returns to the stars. Not as it was, but as it has become. The return of legends 1 week later. Zilara stood in the Grand Council chamber as it filled with representatives from 800 worlds. News of humanity's return had spread like fire through the Federation. Everyone wanted to see the species that had been myth and legend for so long. The council session began with unusual silence. Every eye, from every species, watched the chamber entrance. Then Captain Vasquez entered, followed by a delegation of humans representing Earth's united government. They wore formal uniforms of deep blue and silver. Walking with quiet confidence, they crossed the chamber floor as whispers rippled through the crowd. Zilara guided them to the upper tier, to the section that had been forgotten and abandoned. The empty seat waited, covered in dust and vines. Captain Vasquez brushed the dust away gently, revealing the dark metal beneath. As her hand touched the armrest, something remarkable happened. The symbols on the backrest began to glow with soft golden light. Text appeared in human language, visible to everyone through their translators. Liberty, justice, equality, these we hold as sacred. For these we fight. For these we stand eternal. The chamber erupted in sound. Some species cheered. Others whispered in awe. A few wept openly, though Zilara didn't understand why until she saw Thren in the observer section, tears streaming down his ancient face. He had preserved the memory of humanity through millennia of forgetting. Now he witnessed their return. Captain Vasquez sat in the seat that had waited 75,000 years. It fit her perfectly, as if it had been made for exactly this moment. She looked out over the assembled species, and when she spoke, her voice carried through the chamber with quiet strength. My name is Elena Vasquez. I speak for Earth, for humanity, for a species that was lost and has returned. We come not to conquer or to rule, but to stand beside you as equals. We bring knowledge earned through sacrifice, strength forged in endless war, and hope that has sustained us through the darkest times. The galaxy forgot us, but we never forgot the galaxy. We have protected you from shadows you never saw. Now we stand in the light together. She paused, letting her words sink in. We know the Federation faces challenges. The Krindaks still threaten your worlds. Resources are stretched thin. Unity is fragile. We offer our help freely. Our technology, our military strength, our experience in fighting enemies that seem invincible. But we offer this as partners, not as saviors. We don't bow to anyone. We stand with everyone. The Supreme Chancellor, still a being of pure energy in a crystalline suit, spoke for the first time. Humanity, we welcome your return. We accept your partnership, and we ask your forgiveness for forgetting you when you needed us most. Captain Vasquez stood. There is nothing to forgive. We made our choice 75,000 years ago. We chose to fight alone so others could live in peace. We don't regret that choice, but now the fight is ending. The Devourers are retreating. The Krindaks can be defeated, and Earth is ready to help finish what we started so long ago. Epilogue. Rising together, 3 months later, Zilara stood on the bridge of a combined Human Federation fleet. They were moving to relieve a besieged colony world where Krindak's forces had trapped millions of civilians. The old Zilara would have led a slow, cautious relief mission, trying to negotiate and minimize losses. The new Zilara, the one who had learned from humanity, knew better. Human ships moved through the fleet like predators among prey. They were smaller than Federation dreadnoughts, but infinitely more dangerous. They had fought the Devourers themselves. The Krindaks were nothing by comparison. All ships, this is Captain Vasquez. The human commander's voice rang through the fleet communications. Remember the plan. We don't negotiate with those who prey on the innocent. We don't show mercy to those who show none. We fight to protect. We fight to free. And we fight to win. Let's show them what happens when you threaten Federation worlds. Let's show them that humanity has returned. The fleet dropped out of hyperspace directly above the besieged planet. The Krindak's fleet, caught completely off guard by the aggressive approach, scrambled to respond. But human tactics were beyond anything the Krindaks had encountered. Human ships moved in patterns that seemed chaotic, but were perfectly coordinated. They used the planet's gravity, the system's asteroid belt, even the enemy's own formations against them. Within 3 hours, the Krindak's fleet was broken. The survivors fled into hyperspace, carrying warnings that would spread through their empire. The message was clear. The galaxy had changed. The prey had found protectors who didn't know how to quit Dot as the last Krindak ships vanished. Zilara looked at the saved planet below. Millions of beings would live because humanity had returned. The empty seat was filled at last, not by the peaceful diplomats of ancient legend, but by warriors forged in 75 millennia of darkness. They had not returned as they left. They had returned as something more. They had returned as legends, and the galaxy, Zilara thought with satisfaction, would never forget them again. Humans didn't bow. They rose, and they lifted everyone else with them. The end. Asterisk.